to Atlantic Ocean, upon me hills to country, to educate, elevate, and promote. Yeah, focus on Liberia, for Liberia, Liberia, for Liberia, yeah. From Monday to Sunday. From Monday to Sunday, it's focus on Liberia. Talk about home affairs, in diaspora, current affairs, reliable information. Education, entertainment, business, sports, advertisement, articulation. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. From Monday to Sunday.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Focus on Liberia Live on FOL TV and on Kear Radio. Today I'm feeling so Liberian, so I'm defiantly saying once a Liberian, always a Liberian. And that's why I'm sharing my life. Because, you know, I who was born in Dudwicken, right? Walk 1 hour to school, crossing 4 Creek. Now because I am American, naturalized. As an American citizen, you want to tell me an Liberian, you on your own. Well, I want to welcome all our viewers to Focus on Liberia. The Imperial Presidency and what to do with it is our topic today. There are many things happening in Liberia. You see, the president just appointed the board of directors for Mangibi Community College, including Nukwe and the rest of the people. The yellow machines issue back in focus, and all these things that are happening. We at Focus on Liberia want to take a broader view. You know, we take a step back and say, let's talk about Imperial Presidency and what it is. How has it impacted Liberia, and what can we do with it? That's the topic, and I'm honored to have all our panelists here, starting with, they call him the veteran progressive Deacon Kala, who is in studio right there in Monrovia. Deacon, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Let me also welcome our financial guru here. He's a global banking and finance expert. He is FOL host on FOL Marketplace, Mr. Gabriel M. Tabito Carter. Welcome, Gabriel.
Then it's good to be here. I'm looking forward to having a good discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me also welcome Dr. George Y. William. He's an educator, social and political commentator. And also, man, the guy look good. You can deny it.
Dennis, thank you so much. As always, it is an humbling experience to be in your company and the company of the likes of Deacon, Gabriel, and the many others who grace this platform with their presence. You know, it's always an honor to talk Liberia. Whenever, especially, you're in the company of a veteran like Deacon. You know?
Thank you. Our political analyst, Mr. Mohamed Sherif, is on his way. The guy from Kilipo, Kanwekan, and product of Waplo Institute. Again, we want to welcome all our viewers. Before we even begin the show, you talk so much about Deacon Kala. He is from Kojai in Sino County, and he got some plans. You know, the last time we talked, Deacon, you said there have been no road in Kojai since this time, and people say, well, even today there are no roads. So tell a little bit about Kojai and what you are doing to improve the situation there, because we can't just be talking.
Okay. Thank you. We're glad to be here. and for what you are doing, communicating to and on behalf of all in 73 districts in our country. I say you deserve our thanks.
Thank you.
One of the things that I complain about Kojai and the other district, people are waiting for government to do things. I'm not saying something wrong with that, but there got to be a time where you say, okay, I will try we on our own. Those of us in Kojai for over the last 100 years, we've been left alone. No school there, no clinic, no hospital. There's nothing, no service. So when you ask me, are you a Liberian? Sometimes I start to think, but you're supposed to know that. Why are you asking me? Or you asking me because nobody have paid attention to that side of the country or to that spot in our country? Is that why you're asking me? Kojai, we have our children, our grandchildren are professionally trained. Now, for a person like me, is to encourage one or two of them to come and just look at Kojai, pay attention to Kojai a little bit. My biological children, Kanneh is the investment banker. Kwame is a software engineer. Damo is a computer person. So my own children, I got to make friends with them, not to get annoyed with them. So they go to Kojai and see it. All of us got to make noise, got to talk to our children to just take a look. Go home, come home. That's all I ask. I'm not saying come home to live in Liberia right now or today, but just start is to come home, is to be with all of the people. Oh, well, no store there, no TV, no this. That's true. We don't have it. But maybe when you come with your huge resources, you bring TV. The road thing we're talking about, maybe you say, we'll fix the road. No safe drinking water, we'll do the safe drinking water, we'll bring pipes. They think that we are doing Kojai, we building support so that we can construct a clinic of our own. No clinic there. We're not forcing. It has never been there. The one that I remember the most, my aunt was coming from the farm. And in the process of crossing the road, a car knocked her down. The guy never stopped. He keep moving, he keep moving, he keep moving. And my aunt was rolling. And guess what? For the next 6-7 hours, the lady was bleeding and no doctor, no first aid. By the time my father took this lady to Greenville, by the time they reached Greenville, she just passed out. She passed out. I'm saying that the last thing I would do for myself is to maybe take a look, beg my friends, say, can you help her? Give her 1 bag of cement, give her 2 bags of cement, give her some sand, give her anything. Because these rural towns, cities, if you say that where the government, I'm not blaming the government. I'm not. I just wish I have 54 children, brothers, nephews, nieces, professional people. I wish they would just pay attention to Kojai, just do small things. My son, the investment banker, he asked me, he calls me B collar. He said, B collar, so all that stuff you're doing there, Somebody you died as a con. If I die tomorrow and you will not go to Kojai to just put in one solar light or something, that is on you. But I left New York 30 years. I've had it. I can't go America to live. It's not my place anyway. My place is Kojai. My place is Vubadi. My place is Kirambali. I feel comfortable in those places.
Thank you. Soon you call the name Vubai. I just start getting hungry for dry meat. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome all of you all around the globe. Let's discuss the Imperial Presidency. Dr. George Kear and I were discussing right here, and we coined it the King Kong Presidency. This is the kind of presidency where the president is everything. Even our lives are filled with the presidency. So the president has so much power, even the ones granted by the Constitution. The president also have the authority to even go around the Constitution, and it's justified. So today we're going to, in two parts, we're going to talk about the King Kong Presidency or the Imperial Presidency, whether we have that in Liberia, what has been the impact, what are some examples of this Imperial Presidency. Then part two, what do we do? So I want Dr. Williams to kickstart the conversation. He worries so much about King Kong Presidency. Dr. Williams.
Thank you, Dennis. As a matter of fact, Liberia historically has had one very notable imperial presidency. But let's go back to what is it? You know, it is a presidency that has far-reaching effect and influence over the governance structure of the country. So much so that the president stands as law. The president stands as the sole decision maker and affects just about every branch of government. I know in my short time living on this wonderful earth that Liberia has had one very notable, and I think it dates back to the Tubman era. President Tubman, for 27 years, seemingly wasn't going away, and everything revolved around President Tubman. Whatever he wanted, whatever he said became the situation. That changed a little bit, including the structures that Tubman had set up. You know, all of those structures he set up had people paying homage to him rather than to the state. And so the attention and the all of the accountability was to the president, to the point where even those who ascended to the legislature or were at the level of the Supreme Court all paid attention to the president. All right, Toba will come in, and that will shift a little bit because of the political dynamics of the time. It will shift a little bit. The True Party hegemony wasn't too in sync with a Toba presidency. And so Toba was shaking on that end, and then the progressives were there agitating on the streets. He was shaking on the other end as well. And so Toba had an imbalance. And then came in Samuel Doe. Samuel Doe will exhibit features of an imperial president. As a matter of fact, between 83 and 85, it was a military rule, so that he wasn't president then. But once he was elected, Doe had a strong grip on the country, so much so that he could call on the Chief Justice, Balazet, to resign, and Balazet did resign. Yeah, that's a key feature of an imperial president. So much so that the entire country and decision-making revolved around Samuel Doe. Fast forward into the era of Charles Taylor, another very imperial president. His reign was characterized by whatever he said was law. You know, nobody dared question his reign. Now, when we come to this president, unfortunately, I do not see this president as an imperial president. I see this president as not being in control, because one critical feature of an imperial president is that he is in control. This president is not in control. this president is unable to galvanize and mobilize the population behind what he says and what he does. So much so that people are beginning to question, where is he in this whole process? And so I don't see this president as an imperial president. But yeah, we can go further into how it's playing out nationally.
Thank you.
Yeah, he's not an imperial president.
Thank you. Let me welcome the lawyer's daughter, Glendy Jane Jr. Welcome, Glendy, to the show.
Hello, Dennis. Hello, everybody. It's good to be here.
Thank you. Let me also
hello to all the doctors. We were not a doctor, then we here.
I only one doctor we got here. But let me welcome
I don't have Dr. Pierce in there.
We got the lawyer's daughter. Yeah, so we fall in trouble. You know, people like Deacon and who quick to cause trouble. You will use all your old books to help us.
Mr. Sherif, welcome. Mr. Sherif is our political analyst. He's also a product of Waplo Institute, all the way behind God's back in Kalipo, Kanglike. Welcome, sir.
Dennis, it's good to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sherif, let me start with you, because when we talk imperial president, we are not talking dictatorship or incompetence. So give us, has there been, because there's also an argument that we don't have imperial presidency in Liberia. People just fail to do what they need to do. So let's dig into history a little bit and see whether we really do have imperial presidency and why or why not.
Thank you, Dennis. It's an excellent question. When you look at the history of Liberia, Liberian politics, Liberian presidency, it's revolved around the executive authority. But in early Liberia, you had this imperfect system that they had, which didn't include everybody. So I want to be careful to say that they had, you had these structures, these institutions that, for the most part, was doing their part, was doing their job. You had the presidency, you had the legislature, and the judiciary. But as you come to perhaps what I will argue, the emergence or the evolution of this sort of imperial presidency, as you come to 1912, I believe that time period is very important when Daniel E. Howard is president of the Republic of Liberia. And Daniel E. Howard, for example, one particular incident that we can look at to sort of solidify our argument about the emergence of imperial presidency during that time period is the impeachment or the removal from the Supreme Court bench of T. McKen Stewart. T. McKen Stewart was Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of Liberia. And through whatever means, whatever he may have done, others said that he was critical of the president, although McKen Stewart denied that. McKen Stewart felt like his removal was based on the president's promise to a political supporter to replace him on the Supreme Court bench. In any event, in 1914, I believe it was October 28th of 1914, that a joint resolution of the legislature, Senate and representative. Does this sound familiar? A joint resolution was adopted to remove McKen Stewart from the Supreme Court bench as Associate Justice. The next day, the president issued McKen Stewart a letter of removal. And so you see that the same attitude, the same culture continued through the Dole years when a kangaroo legislative body removed Justice Chair Chipo for no reason other than the fact that he stood for the purity of the judicial system. You saw that under George Weah, Cabinet Jana is removed through with the acquiescence, connivance, contrition, and acquiescence of the president, George Weah. You saw that Speaker Kofa, who is still the legitimate speaker of the Republic of Liberia, is at the attempt now to remove him through the acquiescence of the executive mansion which has caused all kinds of problems, and the court is going to decide soon. So around that time period in 1914, between 1912 and 1914, you had the evolution of what I believe is this executive presidency. Why I say that? No one held Daniel E. Howard accountable for those things. The second event is the Crew War of 1915, around 1915, when the Crews declared their independence from the Republic in Sino County and other places, Grand Cess and other places. Daniel E. Howard's administration clamped down on these people. Hundreds, if not thousands, of Crew citizens, Liberian citizens of the Crew ethnic group were killed, were murdered, were massacred in that area. No one held Daniel E. Howard accountable for those things. And it was under that administration that you had the Spanish coming in, signing contract with the Liberian government, where they're shipping Liberians overseas to work in the port of Fernando Po. And then that continues through Charles D.B. King's administration. And we know what happened. Charles D.B. King was one of the worst presidents. He was an executive president. He clamped down on the Supreme Court. And fast forward, we get to Tubman. Tubman then took it to another level. He was an imperial president. He took it to another level. So as we went on and on and on, you had all these imperial presidents who were never held accountable, who used their power to destroy the doctrine of three and separate equal branches of government. So yes, this president, if you will, is an imperial president because, just because he doesn't say anything doesn't mean that he's not exercising those authorities behind the scenes. He's pulling the string behind the scenes. Look at the incident with Speaker Kofa. This is, the president, people say he's not talking, but he is behind the scenes, teleguarding, the rebel speaker in this whole exercise. So kind of like that, that's kind of how we got here, in my opinion.
Thank you. Let me go to Deacon, who is, I see the green on his face. Deacon, when you were agitating, it was not much so about imperial presidency. So what is your own experience with the imperial presidency? If you can unmute. Unmute yourself, Deacon. All right, go ahead. Yeah.
From 1975 to say 1978, we have recruited over 30,000 Liberian men and women. And in recruiting, they will ask you, all I think you're rating, all the people you're talking to, what happened? And we say, so that you know the difficulty you are in, that you are in. You look at your farm road, school in the town. Look around. Don't let me tell it to you. You tell me. Y'all get hospital, good hospital, medicine side. We went through the country and we were just recruiting. That method, that tool of ours, to me, it proved the difference. 75, 76, 77, people ask us, say, so they book you, say you're learning, just go to America and I play all your friends and go away. Why you want to get in trouble with these people? What's wrong with you? One lady, I think she knew my mom. She said, your mom only child. So why they can't just tell you all of here, send you all of here? Why they keeping you around? Because you were down. That's where they tell you. As you were marching around the country, they will tell you some horror stories. Horror stories. But here, my understanding, my definition of party building is to bring the number to play. all of our friends, they school. They say, "Piggy, go to school." Then when you come from after school, then you come to the office or go to your go open your own office while you're just sitting down. Those people who are interested in building party or who doing political work, you got to recruit the people and train them. Train them. They are weak sitting by themselves. They are very weak. Put some strength in. I heard you talking about Kabina Jali. Yeah. He was active with us sometime. Well, then, after during the war, they made Chief Justice. And he was B-man. This ruthless thing you were talking about, the presidency, you can't be by yourself and you win it. You will not win a thing. You will not win a thing. Even some of our own people, sometimes when they get toward the civilized people thing, then they forgot that civilized people, they're not your friends. I'm quick on telling some of those people that if you're not your friend, you're acting like you let them, but they're not your friend.
So how does that impact or solve the issue? Anyway, we'll get to that. But how does that, the Imperial Presidency, you talk about party, right? Is it going to help? Is that what you're saying? Dika, are you there?
I think he's muted.
All right. Let me go to Glendy. Our friend Thomas Awaji is asking, is the Imperial Presidency a good thing or a bad thing? Glendy, what's your...
And decide what direction to take.
Oh.
He's back.
Something went out?
Yeah, you froze.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, just continue.
So just 30 more seconds for you to conclude. And
I said the Imperial Presidency, for me, is about control. If you're waiting on them, if you're looking to them, instead of organize yourself, bring yourself together, they're not going to turn around. They will do what they do. They will mobilize capital, money, and act like it's their money. That's what the people got to do. Organize themselves. Is that one day exercise?
Yeah.
It will never be.
Thank you. Glendy, we're talking Imperial Presidency here. What is it to you? Is it good or bad, as Awaji is asking?
Hello, everybody. It's good to be here. I don't think, first, I don't think Imperial Presidency is a good thing. I don't think it's a good thing for African nations because the check and balances will be difficult because you're giving one person a tremendous amount of power, and who's going to be able to check on them. So for a struggling Liberia, with what we've seen and what we have, I don't think Imperial Presidency is what we will need because it's not going to help us as a people. Number two, I don't think Joseph Boyka is an Imperial President. I want to agree with Mohamed when he talked about Tutma. I think Tutma was an Imperial President. I think Charles Taylor was, because those people, I think they had so much powers that nobody could check them. And even if there were check and balances, they did not involve. When you have a president who controls the executive branch and acts like he controls all of the other three branches, that's a problem. And we saw that a lot with George Weah. I mean, I may not be okra with all of the historical facts with Tutma and stuff because I was very young, but history tells us of the powers that he had. And right now we can look back at Weah and see that Weah had the judicial in his pockets. He had the legislative in his pockets. And he had a huge amount of power that whatever he wanted them to do, they could do. Does Joseph Boyka have that today? I don't think so. I don't think he does, because if he had that, I'm pretty sure by now the capital building issue will be resolved. It would not be that we have a minority and majority. We would know that we have a majority because we can assume that Joseph Boakai supports the majority bloc. An imperial presidency will be difficult for a struggling economy because you're going to be faced with corruption. You're going to be faced with, I mean, you can refer to America, of course. We have to be careful how we say what we say about America now. But of course, America has an imperial president with all of the powers and all of the executive orders that's been issued. You can say that with ignoring the fact that there are other branches of government and not allowing them to exist independently is someone that we will refer to as an imperial president. I don't think we have that in Liberia. I don't think Joseph Boakai is that.
Yeah. Thank you. Gabriel, let me come to you because somebody told me that the presidency, every president everywhere is designed to be an imperial president. Why? Because the president has so much power. He has something called executive orders, right? Which just by the stroke of a pen. And if we thought that American democracy was all that without imperial presidency, look at Trump, and what he's doing is not afoul with the Constitution, right? So he can issue executive order, 1,000 of them, just him, right? He can go around the law. He can go around things. And besides that, the Constitution gives the president so much power. So one big bookman told me every presidency in itself is an imperial presidency. Do you agree?
Man, it seemed as if you were reading my notes as I was taking notes here.
Man, that's how good I am.
No, I'm serious.
The best vote since the fall of the Mali Empire.
Right? So there's something you said in that I actually have in my notes here. A stroke of a pen become law of the land, right? A stroke of a pen become law of the land, meaning where the president comes in, he has so much power. The executive order allows him to just sign a law and he circumvent the legislature, the Senate, the House of Representatives, and it becomes straight law. Nobody challenges that, right? The other thing, here's what I want to disagree with, I think with some people here. I don't think we have imperial presidency in Liberia. What I believe we have is strong men without imperial presidency. And here's the difference. The reason why I think we have strong men in Liberia, presidency in Liberia, is because these guys do not have, what they're doing is just strong handling the government. What they're not passing laws that become permanent, right? Whereas in the United States, what you are seeing is executive orders. The executive order that Trump have signed, President Obama, they have been signing. In addition to that, these executive orders are being challenged. If you go in the court right now, you will see a series of lawsuits challenging what the executive orders that Trump has been signing. Whereas in Liberia and in most African countries, we don't have that. We just have people who are strong-willed, who impose themselves on the entire government. But these presidents are not passing laws to implement their policies. That's the difference. So we have strong men, and in the United States, we have imperial presidency because you know there's check and balance, and you have to circumvent those check and balances to get to the top to impose your will on the rest of the government. So that's why I want to disagree.
Let me give you some example before you continue.
Right.
President Sherif wanted she didn't like Johnny Lewis, so she was able to go through the legislature to amend the Constitution to say 70 you're done, so that Johnny Lewis won't continue. When they when they wanted something against Mill Jones because he was running, they brought about the code of conduct. If you have to resign.
Right.
So the president is so powerful. The presidency is powerful that they can go through the legislature to do things. Right.
Right.
So all these, we saw that with the tenure law with President Boakai, and people justify that, hey, he's right. The Constitution gave the president so much power. So by even having these tenure jobs, you are circumventing his appointment power. So make me understand when you say we don't have it in Liberia, it's only strong word, because they are using the Constitution to get all this power. President Boakai or the Liberian presidency appoint so many people, In fact, you are the one appointing the justices, and you are the one paying them. So if they don't sing your song, you can cut their pay, right? What we saw with the House saga was everybody was waiting for the budget to be passed. So
Correct.
because if this is not resolved, so the Senate and the judiciary held their breath until the budget is passed. So there are ways that the president can pull some strings, and that's why people say this is a King Kong presidency.
Well, I agree with you to an extent. There's a little bit of nuance when you come to, and I don't want to draw a parallel here with the U.S. and Liberia. I just want to stick to Liberia, and I think it was Dr. William and Mohamed who actually gave us a great history in terms of how we have gradually evolved to this level of power, unilateral power within the government, that pretty much we get to the point where the citizen, the lawmakers we have in the country cannot do anything, right? But the difference that I was trying to make here is that in our case, if you want to, again, I don't want to go back there, but I want to use it as an example. If you compare it to the United States, where there's tons of executive orders, right? Because I know the president here knows that if they go through the Senate, the House of Representatives, some of those laws that he want to implement will get debunked. They won't even see the light of day. Whereas in Liberia, we don't have those kind of executive orders. These are just people who are like, snaking their way in it, talking to the Supreme Court and the lawmakers and buying these people to implement that. Here's the point that I was trying to make. With that kind of maneuver in Liberia, you have a way to solving those problems, right? Meaning because these are not laws that are on the books, meaning you are just going to buy people off to agree with you to do certain things. These are not permanent law on the books. We can take back those power, and this is why I think I don't want us to label this thing as a imperial presidency. Yes, imperial presidency, the term to which we use it, it means unilateral power, right? It means you have it's kind of borderline authoritarianism, right? Where you have this control, complete control over. We don't have that, and I will agree with Mr. Sherif. The only point we came close to having that was through Mr. Todman, right? Besides that, I think we just have a bunch of strong men. Taylor was a strong man who just imposed his will upon people. Here's what I want to say before I land.
Yes.
There are solutions, and there are
solutions. We'll come to the solution. We want to discuss.
So that's the difference that I want to make here. I don't think we have imperial presidency. We just have strong men in Africa who like to impose their will on the citizens. And in the United States, this is where you will see the unilateral power, because there are constitutional borderlines, and the Constitution is the ultimate check and balance, whereas we don't have those check and balance in Africa. So this is why you see they don't go through the executive route.
Thank you. Mr. Sherif, do you agree?
No, I don't agree. So when you talk about imperial presidency, so what are we talking about? It's the expansion of presidential power, the superfluous application of presidential powers. In terms of, that's why I started with 1912, 1914. Presidents, declaring war on their own citizens without any checks and balances from the legislature. President removing a Supreme Court justice with a joint resolution from the legislature. And so, you come right through to CDB King, Tubman, Dole, and so on and so forth. Everyone has done that. And so without any qualms or any sort of checks from the legislators, and right now you have a group of legislators that are affiliate with the president. What is the reason why the coup in the current House of Representatives was staged? It was staged, I will argue, to further expand presidential authority. Speaker Kofa, what did he do? He rubber stamped everything that the president wanted him to do. The only thing different there was that he was a member of the opposition, and he questioned one or two things.
So Mr. Sherif, I want you to add. So is every presidency by design an imperial presidency?
No.
I'm
Because
hearing some
if you
background
look
noise.
at all the powers,
I'm hearing some background noise. I can't.
Go ahead.
I said the presidency by design is an imperial presidency.
I mean, if you look at the Constitution, right? So if you look at the Constitution gave the executive authority to the president. So this is by design. It's meant to say we have one spokesperson at a time. So we have you can't have 50 different senators speaking for the country. You can't have 50 or 100 different senators and 200 other members of the House of Representatives, speaking for the country. So you invested that power, the power to be the spokesperson, the power to sign, to liaise with other countries, that power to the president. When it comes to Liberia, it's taken at a whole another level, at a whole different level. There was a time when you read history, with the Tubman administration, where everybody was going to the mansion, even husband and wives, issues were settled at the executive mansion. The president knew, what was going on, what you and your wife, was, what you were going through at home. President knew what you were eating at home. This is a superfluous application or use, even if it's not, a de facto, albeit, of the use of presidential authority. The president could declare war at any time. The president could send, Liberia Frontier Force men to collect taxes at any time. Taxes that were put in their own pockets, that were not used for the Liberian people. So that was a use of the executive imperial presidency that was not beneficial to the Liberian people, and that laid the groundwork for some of what we saw later. Dennis, on the last show, I talk about C.D.B. King, ad nauseum. All of the things that C.D.B. King did, he clamped down on the judiciary. So when Gabriel said we do. C.D.B. King clamped down on the judiciary to the extent that he defended Firestone more than the Liberian people. He was Firestone, C.D.B. King. Firestone was synonymous. He was in the pocket of Firestone. So
were these law, or was these they just strong arming those people, the government? Were these laws that were passed on the books to amend the constitution to impose his will, or was this somebody who just strong arm the entire government, the executive, the lawmakers to get his will? That's the thing that I want to distinguish.
That's a good question. So let's take the Firestone. Let's take the Firestone Agreement for an example. When the Liberian legislature signed the original, passed the original agreement, Firestone, Harvey Firestone and his people then returned to the United States, made their own agreement in the United States that was drafted in the United States. And Charles D. and they contacted Charles D.B. King to say whatever they're doing, they need to stop. And Charles D.B. King impressed on the Liberian legislature that they must stop. So the Liberian legislature stopped everything that they were doing. So all of the agreement, everything that Harvey Firestone brought to Liberia, Charles D.B. King rubber stamped it, through the legislature. So it was not anything that they could reject. That's a presidential overreach. That's imperial presidency, and that became law, by the way. So the contract that you see now, where they stole Firestone, stole Liberian land, that was drafted here in the United States and pushed down on the throats of the Liberian people through the legislature. Whether or not you can say they don't know what they were doing, but this was an imperial president who was willing to fire people in the legislature if he didn't have his will.
Thank you. George, Dr. William, let's distinguish here between dictatorship or autocracy and the imperial presidency. Let's also be able to tell the difference, like pure incompetence. So I want you to tell me where can we draw the line a president who is just dictatorial, and then imperial presidency, meaning that those powers are being granted let's say, by the Constitution. This is by design. It was set up that way for the president to have so much power,
Exactly.
right? And the president is actually using that power. The president is circumventing powers or the Constitution without even getting into trouble.
Yep.
So firstly, it's important for us to recognize that the branding Imperial Presidency comes from borrowed from an imperial setup where there's an emperor sitting on this high throne and you have all these kings looking up to him for final decision. In Liberia, and I argue again, an imperial presidency is not constitutionally given. There might be structures to support an imperial president like we have in Liberia. We have the president who appoints over 500 or more officials of government. That is a setup for an imperial president. And presidents before the one we have currently have used that to their advantage. So there are structures that encourages the imperial president. But when we go back to, say, the Tubman era and his creation of all these patronage network that Mohamed is alluding to, subsequent leaders, George Weah, for example. So it's important to look at the characteristics of these leaders in relations to how power is used. The imperial president, primarily the imperial president, has an overly imposing presence on the governance system of the country. If we use that as a yardstick, President Boycott does not have an overly he is, and he might be pulling a lot of strings.
Let me interject, right? That's why I wanted us to distinguish that from autocracy, right? Because let's say the imperial right now, our president can use $1 zillion and say it's for security purpose, like we saw with NSA, right? You can take money and put it there and say, this is what I'm doing, and that's it. The Constitution gives you that power, right? This is for Al-Qaeda is coming to attack us, and so this is for covert operation. You have the power to do it. Or you can get up and say, well, today I'm signing executive order, nobody should eat meat on Friday. That is law. The president has that power. So that's imperial presidency. If the president also, and you said the appointment, right? The president is appointing all the justices and associate justices. The president is the one paying them. The president, we saw that President Weah, when he couldn't pay the judicial branch, they see how much money they are getting. The president is deciding this goes where. So the in Maga's office is more than a complete right?
Dennis, we have to draw the line between weak institutions and an imperial presidency. What we have, it's difficult to look at one without looking in the mirror just next door, and we see those are twin evils. Weak institutions give rise to imperial presidents, and what we've had over time, because our government is set up for checks and balances. The legislature, the people's representatives are there to curtail. No, they're there to curtail the powers and the excesses of the executive. But if you have a weak legislature, that gives room for and give rise to an imperial president, like we might be experiencing we've experienced over time. But if the legislature is strong enough to question, because the budget emanates from the executive, but it's approved by the legislature. Their job is to allocate. And if they're allocating based on the wishes of the executive, that's a problem. That's a problem. And that's the weakness we talk about. So we cannot talk imperial presidency without looking at the strength and capacity of the institutions that are there to ensure that there is a balance. And so over time, what we've suffered from severely are weak institutions, and strong leaders, dictatorial leaders, will ensure that those institutions continue to be weak. Because the stronger those institutions are, the weaker they become as leaders. And so we have to look at the two, and I'm sure that's where the conversation is going to go in terms of how do we transition from the plight. Yeah.
Dennis, 1 second, if you will.
I was going to Glendy, but go ahead. 30 seconds.
So the appointment powers, right? Superintendents and all these different things, right? You know, so the president control all of this. It's vast power. You appoint all of these people and they serve at the will and pleasure of the executive. They don't have to do anything. You can get up tomorrow morning and fire any one of them and replace them with all his own family members. The Constitution allow any of those. So that's an imperial presidency. And sometimes you have had presidents who have overreached, and it's not a good thing when you're talking about a country like Liberia.
Yeah. So you agree with me that it's by design an imperial system set up. Take the budget, right? The president, the budget emanates from the executive, goes to the House. If they sign it, send it to the president, he can say no until it becomes foolproof, right? To test before. So, I mean, how do you even come to that level?
Right.
So why we give the president so much power, Glendy? But Glendy, the power is too much. They point down to the principle of BWI, the University of Liberia president. So if you have so much power to appoint all these people, now the president is appointing central bank governor, and these people are supposed to check on you. If they don't, you don't pay them. How is that not imperial presidency?
So I mean, to some extent, I think you're right with the design.
I'm always right.
I'm just
no, I'm kidding.
With the design, Dennis, but you also have to look at the backdrop. On which footsteps are we standing on? Where have we come from? What design of government do we follow? If America is part and parcel of what Liberia was built on, then that's where we come from. But when is it that we as Liberians will recognize that maybe we need a change in the system so that you have people in control more than you have the president being in control? So until the people of Liberia recognize that some of these powers that the president has should not be his and constitutionally make the changes, we'll continue to have these things. Because like you said, if the president is appointing all the superintendents, do you expect them to come in and vote for me, Glenn, if I'm going against him? No, they won't. No, they won't. So those are positions that have been secured based on how the system is set up. So the system, when we look at the different systems in Liberia, and Deacon can tell us even more, is like there has to be a drastic change in our approach, in the things that we do to be able to further a better Liberia, or else we'll continue to have these problems. We'll continue to think the president, because the justice is from his party, so the justice has to align with what he believes and what the things he does. So yes, by design, but I think to some degree, because you've had a legislative branch and probably a judicial branch that to some degree has not allowed the president in this government to do as he pleases, so we can say that he's not an imperial president. But the change will not come unless the people recognize that we need the change.
Deacon, on the flip side, the justice, the chief justice, for instance, I mean, can say no. So let's talk about the people. Is it because, but even if legislators that are not appointed by the president, they are still, licking the president's shoes. The chief justice, who has all the power. So if people they don't have ethics, or if they don't have integrity, is that more of the issue than the imperial presidency? Because why can't you say no, even if you're a minister? Why can't you say no if you're a chief justice, the president has no power over you? Or yet, chief justices or legislators, everybody still want to bow to the president. So really, it's not the imperial presidency, it's us. What do you think?
I say people are refusing to put a check on the presidency because they want their bread and butter, that piece of bread. There's a side the butter is on. And then where they see the butter.
Right.
So if you want to be in the judiciary, then you will behave. If look, I understand all that. Our country people here, they are poor. They don't have it. So when somebody gave you a job, then you say, as a friend of mine,
Mm.
they constituted a commission, they nominated me there. And she said to me, Khan, you know who gave you that job? I said, no. I said, that guy used to be my friend. You're an IE man. So why you not supporting him? You are supporting him as long he will not do the wrong thing. And you got to be strong to stand up. Judiciary, the legislature. Look at the flunkies that come to the Capitol. Look at them. So when they get to the Capitol, one time they asked me to do a review of the budget with them. And I started telling the group that recruited me to do this. A lot of hanging fruits over the budget. Hanging fruits. You ever pay attention to that budget? How it's structured? What is it structured for? The guys that go to the Capitol building, they fight to go on the finance committee or the procurement committee on this. And in 1 year, 2 years, the guys are loaded. Loaded. You have to have people with a good intent. They want to do well. If the president wants to do well, you know, our country will follow the president.
That's the problem.
Tomorrow, Waka want put on a coat suit. They all come with wear suit. I recall as a young kid.
But why is that, Deacon? Why do we follow the president?
Because we have a flunky system. The system that we have is you want to look like the president so that he will give you a check and give you a little something.
So we don't have integrity. We can sacrifice what we believe in just to eat.
I say integrity is not a good word for our country. People, we don't have it. When you begin to talk about integrity in our country, people actually, you know what you're talking about? You know what you're doing? And they said that because for them, the president is all. He allocates the budget. He says, and I think I told a story here. First time I saw Samuel Doe, they told him that I refuse to pay the people, PRC people. So they came running Samuel Doe, running West Side, running Thomas Kwewangba, running Podia, all of them came. And we met on the vice president floor in front of his office. You ain't there. And I said, Mr. President, and you, man, I will implement any number the PRC put in place. If you say you want to clean up the country, it start with a budget. Let's fix the budget. Bring your best mind in the country, even though you knew, but bring the best mind so that we rationalize the budget. And you should be willing to say that to the president, particularly a military president, because you know something or two. You believe this place. Look, Mr. Boaka is okay. All a men, they're okay, but you got to be ready to have a political party system. The political parties must put a strong check on the presidency because it is the parties that will sit down and nurture a working system. If you do not have a working political parties, I'm afraid we will not do well. And you can rest assured, you look, they will suspend the other party, or you get here one fat job, then that side of the party weak.
You finish.
There may be the other party people, the president giving a little some here and there. Then when you look, the parties are naked. So we have to decide one day that we'll fix the parties. To me, the presidency thing you're talking about, the kangaroo thing you're talking about, take a hard look at the political parties. The political party, what are they ready to do? What can they offer our country? Because they probably flunking them out. They're the one that put them there. They're the one that, the little chopping business, they're the one that nurture it. Let me just say this quickly. The True Party, for example, they had a church, they had a Masonic craft, and they had a True Party. So if you been around here a little time, look at those three institutions: the church, the True Party. The True Party. There. When you want to talk about imperial presidency and all that thing, look at the parties. If the party don't straighten up, the president, I don't know about it. You have to build strong parties.
And that's what we are coming to now as the solution. But let me welcome our friend from the UK, Dr. Fidel C.T. Buri. Dr. Buri, welcome. And we are talking imperial presidency. I want your a 1 minute input on that before we go to solutions.
Well, I think, we talked about this. Thank you. And first of all, apologies for my tardiness or lack of, but always glad to be here. We talked about this briefly on Thursday when we were looking at the whether or not the progressives need to apologize for 1979. And in Liberia, and again, my argument was and still is that the systems that we put in place have made it difficult for there to be clear check and balances on the president. And the president, under President Tubman, that presidency became very imperial. Pretty much all of the powers were vested in the office of the president, and every president after has adopted the same kind of stance in terms of how they govern Liberia. I think, unfortunately, the individuals, and I think Mr. Kala was just touching on that we have in the legislature who should be the check on the executive, very much in it for themselves. These are individuals who do not understand the power of the legislature and hence are not willing or able to wield that power to hold the executive to account. And unfortunately, because of that, I think it's difficult then, because you can't ask the man who's benefiting from being an imperial president to put a check on himself, right? You need others to do that. And unfortunately, the individuals that we keep electing to that party, who are, again, that's the first branch of government. There's a reason why it is the first branch of government, because it is supposed to have the power of the people behind it. And these individuals don't understand the powers that they have. And unfortunately, until they can, or until we can bring individuals in there that understand that power, and the imperial presidency in Liberia is going to be a thing that's here to stay.
Thank you. So as we segue into the solution, what can we do about this? Let's summarize some of the characteristics of the imperial presidency. Number one, unilateral decision making. The president makes decisions without consulting Congress or ignore, and I would say Congress, let's say the legislature, or ignore their opposition. You can find a way to go around it, right? The president also has executive overreach. The president can see constitutional authority, often citing national security or emergency power. In Liberia, they say covert operation, so you can put money anywhere, right? You can also, the imperial presidency can disregard for checks and balances. the president will either ignore or undermine the legislative and judicial branches, their ability to execute, to check their power. And just like Dr. Budi says, in their interest. I mean, why you want to tie yourself? So, and then there is also secrecy and lack of transparency. The president will withhold some information and cite, executive privilege. I can tell you because it's executive privilege, right? So we see all that's going on. Now we come to the point, say, now what do we do? Because I don't think this is good for the country. So let me start with you, Gabriel. What do we do with the imperial presidency
So I think
in Liberia?
I believe as we, everyone was talking here. I think most people alluded to some of the solutions that I want us to look at. Uh, I want to refer to him as Dr. Carlo, but I think it's Mr. Carlo. He talks about political or aggressive Carlo, right? Aggressive agitation, progressive agitation, meaning, and this is something that I've always preached on this show here. You cannot just become a bystander as a citizen. If you see something happening in the law, such as perfect example, what was happening in Kenya, where they were passing this finance bill and the citizen protested, you have the right as a citizen to protest some of these measures or overreach from the president. We saw it the first time here when Trump got elected. There was protests all across the country about some of his policies, right? Second, the Supreme Court, which brings me to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is supposed to be the arch check and balance institution in the country that's supposed to separate itself from the president. Meaning, yes, you understand some of you guys are actually appointed by the president, but you have a constitutional mandate to keep the constitution of the country in check, including the president. That includes the president. We do not have that in Liberia, so we need to go back to that, that ability for the Supreme Court to be able to make decisions like that. Separate yourself from the president, the decision that the president make, right? In Liberia, we don't have a lot of executive orders, but I believe even in the United States here, we need to put a limit on the number of executive order the president can pass, right? And I think you alluded to this. Sometimes they evoke, oh, this is, constitution. This is what you call it? This is for security reasons, or we're going to war. I don't need, any delay. I have to have this executive order passed to make a decision. But there ought to be
emergency power.
Right, emergency power. There ought to be a limit on that. And here's something that I always like to say, and it brings me right back to the citizens, because I think we sometimes forget that the power belongs to the people, and this is something we don't understand in Liberia. What the government always does for itself does not always translate into what works for the citizens. Meaning, those in government will pass laws and implement certain powers that favors them to get elected for the next election. That does not always mean that law will be effective, will be beneficial to the government. So this is why I believe citizen protesting some of these things is very important. And even if you are in the street protesting, it will raise a red flag to the Supreme Court, the lawmakers who will actually join you in the process. So I think these are some of the things that I think we have to adopt in Liberia specifically to curb some of these unilateral power that we have with the president. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Budi. And I know because of time, lots of, even though you have 10, but give small. Go ahead, Dr. Budi.
I'm glad, obviously, I'm glad that Gabriel went before me, right? Because what I was thinking, one of the things I was thinking about, he mentioned, and I think Mr. Kala, or I'll say the Honorable Progressive Kala mentioned as well on Thursday, and I think it was our brother Elvis Morris who also called into the show and also mentioned that the power to change anything in any society across the world rests with the people, right? The people of the Republic of Liberia, especially those on the ground, have all of the powers in their hands to change anything and everything they want to change in the country. The problem we have is that, and again, I'll say it, and I'm happy to defend it. The quote unquote forefathers of Liberia set up a system where they intentionally neglected the education of the population of Liberia. They basically outsourced education in Liberia to missionaries and people who were philanthropists that were willing to put money into education. The government of Liberia for a long time neglected educating its people. And until the people can understand the power that they have, until Liberians can fully understand the importance of their votes, right, we will continue to have the situations that we keep having in successive governments in Liberia. Because at the end of the day, when people are voting purely because of what they can get out of someone now, i.e., you bring one peck of rice, you bring small money today, I vote for you based on one peck of rice, small money today, then the issues will continue to go on in perpetuity, right? Unfortunately, I think for most of us who have the time and are willing to talk and speak on these things, we've not come together as a group to put our minds together and find a way of sensitizing the Liberian people. We need to come together, myself and everyone on this panel and every Liberian across the world who believes that the things that are going on should not be going on, and develop strategies that will give Liberians an education on the power of their votes, the power of their voices, the power to protest, the power to hold your elected officers, right? Let's give you an example. And again, for most of you, you live in the US, and we know what is going on in the US right now. But some US representatives, especially those from the Republican Party, when they go back home and go to their town hall meeting, their constituents are going there and shouting at them and letting them know clearly that, look, this is unacceptable. This is not what we voted for. Thankfully for the United States, they have a midterm every 2 years. So it's easy for the people through their votes to make a change. Unfortunately, in Liberia, we do not have that opportunity, right? We do not have a midterm in the 6-year presidency, but the Liberian people still have the power. There is no way that any president of Liberia, right? We know, and I'll give you an example. Charles Taylor, when he was president, there were a group of women who basically went and sat down in front of a house or sat down to their fish market there and say, until you guys can do something to stop this war, we are not going to leave this place. Right? And we said this about the progressives, as Akala talked about how they were beating and in prison on regular. You have to be willing to sacrifice. And unfortunately, a lot of Liberians, including some of us who talk about these things all the time, we're not willing to go out there and stand in the streets and say, look, this is unacceptable. I'll just give you an example. I just come from eating something and reach Barra Jenna. When I think about that kind of driver, I'm like, I can't leave that kind of driver. I go sit down in the sun, they can't be beating me. I'm going to do that kind of thing. And that is how we think. Most Liberians who are earning a little bit feel satisfied with life, including those in Liberia. And they're like, let the other folk, let them go, but I'm going to join the street. And the more we do that, the more we are unwilling to sacrifice this thing to control. So we need to come together. The solution is we need to come together. We need to educate the people on the power of their vote and their right and the power to protest.
Dr. Budi, you sound like a progressive in the 70s. And you and I know, because exactly what you are describing, that's what the progressive did. And they are still trying to dig themselves out of the hole because a lot of people see them, and I mean it, a lot of people see them that they caused what happened. They caused the war, they caused everything and everything, right? So now you see them, they are coming to defend themselves.
That's a whole conversation, Dennis.
Let me push back on that, because any Liberian, and what I'm about to say, I expect people to hold me to it, right? Any Liberian, in my opinion, that blames the progressives for Liberia's problems, that means you don't read. It means you're not willing to educate yourself. It means that you are very narrow-minded. You're not considering the various factors. So on Thursday, I told you there were various forces agitating, right? It wasn't just the progressives were only rioting for residents, right? And to change the way the government was thinking. You had the American Liberian elites that are telling top of my man, no, you can't give people boys power. You had the army people that these people were sending on their farms to go cut their rice and disrespecting them, like they were angry as well. So If you ask Mr. Kala now, he said on Thursday, and he will say to you now, and if you go ask Paco Mafia, who could ask him to tell you, look, when they're doing the cookie, they were in jail. So how did they do your cookie top when they were in jail? And they were beating them every morning. Then you'll say, oh, you have to, if you're not, and that's why I talk about the mind. We need to educate our people on our history and on the negative impact of the system as it is. And until people can have that education, the system as it is negative for the ordinary Liberian. And we need to change that, but it's education.
Thank you.
Well said.
Dr. Will, I want to hear your view on the solution, but one thing I want to point out is we talk about system. Dr. Budi said what was started by our forefathers in the 19th century. Come on now. We're still blaming progressive for what happened 40 years ago. We're still blaming the first government for what happened 100 years ago. When are we going to change it? The constitution, for instance, that was put in place under President Doe, it's been how long now? And we still can't even change how long lawmakers stay in office, and we're complaining about the past. I want to hear your view.
Well, again, and thanks a lot, Dennis, for the question. Dr. Budi alluded, and other speakers alluded to the fact that we have a system that's entrenched in Liberia that hasn't been revisited for centuries.
Why?
It's a lack of will. Ignorance can be attributed to part of the reason why it hasn't been. I listen to other networks and I hear people running to be seated back in the legislature after 18 years, and there hasn't been one significant governance reform taking place in the country over the last 40 years. That speaks volume to the level of leadership, the level of intelligence of the people, but even more so, the quality of people we put into leadership. So, my summation of our governance problem is the need for a comprehensive governance reform agenda. A comprehensive reform agenda. We have not had mayoral elections since 1977. And it didn't even happen in 1977. Chiefs since the war have not been elected. Too many things. We have a presidency that is overloaded with so much power. And until we can revisit, I'll tell you what happened. The president appointed a president of the University of Liberia. I'm an educator, and I am aware of the influence and the negative effects of politics on education. Our entire education system has been delegated to private providers. So much so that government isn't pushed to investing as much as they should, because historically, it's always been the churches that have run the system. The Catholics, the Methodists, the Baptists, they've run the system. And so government has never been compelled to invest as much as it should in education. I know for sure a lot of investment was made during the 70s, but once Chaba got off the scene, things went down the drain. And so we were able, for example, to write the education committee of the Senate to say it is about time that we begin some reform. And one of those reforms will be that the president cannot be appointing presidents of public universities. Let him appoint the board. Let the board decide who becomes president. Do you know that as I speak, it's been almost 3 months. I have not even gotten an acknowledgement from the Senate Committee on Education. I have tried to call. I have not even gotten a phone answer. And it speaks volume to the more holistic problem. People are not interested in serious reform. We run after the cosmetics. What can put money in our pockets? And like you said, Dr. Budi, it is important that we use these platforms to galvanize and educate our people. Deacon has always said that. If you don't educate the people, you're positioning yourself to fail. We have to educate our people. We have a classic example right now in Nimba County. whatever is going on in Nimba County, to be frank with you, friendly forces, and I will brand anyone, friendly forces have to look in that array of candidates. I'm from Grances. I haven't gone to Grances since 1997. You know, the pictures I get out of Grances is depressing. I hope sooner or later when I go back to Liberia, I'm able to visit Grances. But what is going on in Nimba right now is an opportunity for the change that we are all envisaging. How can we galvanize our support for that candidate, whoever that candidate is, who brings out what we want to see for Liberia? What kind of candidate do we want to see representing Liberia? Let's help Nimba County make that decision so that the change that we want to see across the country can begin to now splutter across the country. But it will entail a lot of different strategies. Yes, it will entail coming together. We can't do it divided. How we get to come together is another issue. Dennis shared with me his frustration of trying to bring people together. And, you know, it's a challenge. Deacon, it's a challenge. I don't know how you guys did it. You guys succeeded during your time. But the generation after your generation, Deacon, it is so difficult for us to come together. First thing, there's too many deception, deceit. You know, you talk to a friend today, before you know it, he's in Monrovia campaigning for something else. But he's already taking your ideas. Yeah, I had a meeting with a colleague in DC.
Yep.
We talked about the future, just like we're talking today. 2 weeks later, I read in the newspapers, the man was already a candidate for ANC. I called him, I said, but we had a conversation. Why didn't you feel the need to share this with me?
Yep.
Another colleague, educator, we're organizing educators in America to assist the country. 2 weeks later, the brother is, I read a newspaper, the brother has been appointed superintendent of MCSS. We're in America. We know nothing about it. So the level of deception, Tika, I didn't really see that with you guys. We saw the Moja group and the UPP group, the Power group. You guys were separate ideologically, but you're operated. You're operated. Our generation is failing and we need help. We need help or else the country is doomed. How do we come together? Y'all got to help us.
So, sorry, let me just 10 seconds.
Wow,
10
that's
seconds,
quite
10
a
seconds
plea.
quickly.
Hold on. The headlines in the paper will be
quickly.
Dr. George Wild cries for help.
Yes.
Let me 10 seconds quickly. Dr. Williams, at least you waiting for a response from a whole committee. I actually flew to Liberia, met with a senator to try and support a bill that this senator was putting forward, and to even hold a meeting with me for 5 minutes, it wouldn't happen. So at least you waiting. You in America waiting me. I went all the way to Liberia, pay my own plane ticket and all. So just to tell you how bad it can be.
That's absurd.
So the checks we're talking about, we talk about the check on the president, but William Jala said the legislative branch also need to be kept in check. There's a group of people that make their own salary. They keep getting they keep getting raised, even if nobody is getting paid. They keep getting raised, and they tell you, in fact, the money we are getting is not enough because we're supposed to take the money and
very poor country,
share it with other people. They are not talking about, in America we say Title IV fund. They get money, they say that scholarship money, and legislators presiding over it, they determine who gets this and who gets that, and say, yet it's not enough. So while talking Imperial Presidency, if the executive tool is not in check, you get the scenario where you scratch my back, I scratch your back. Deacon, let me hear your solutions on how do we confront this executive presidency. Unmute your.
What do I do?
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I was saying.
I know this thing is not in Kojayi, so you have a problem with it.
Yeah, you know. I went to the Capitol building in 1980. Representatives at the time were making $133 a month. 1980, 133. The representative today, it looked like they carry home is over $8,000 a month. That's a huge jump, right?
Yeah.
So for Kanneh to be making 8,000 plus a month. So
plus
what
gas, plus scratch car, plus car.
all the other thing.
And housing, yeah.
Yeah. But the take home pay is that huge little sum. And I'm saying, so justify your 8,000. We, the people, must put pressure on these guys or on the system so they will perform. If you went to the Capitol building in the morning, like I do every now and then, you walk around, the guys are not there. You want to see a senator? You want to see a representative? They're not there. They'll tell you, I go to work 8 o'clock. They're not there. So the public will have to find a way to put pressure to make sure that their system, their country, their representative do something. There's something you want to talk about quality. So for me, I say you must first have courage to demand quality. You must have courage. Then my old man used to say, you gotta know bogo, because the people that are doing something, they're ready to face their country. So you gotta know book. The guys that are going to the House, to the Senate, they must go there with a view that they must do this A, B, C, D. They got to have a vision. They must have the courage to say, yeah, take the fight that is going on in the Capitol building between the majority and the other group. Take that fight. What is it about? I keep saying they got to say what it's about. It's I was hearing that they say we got to redo the budget. We got to audit ourselves. So what is wrong with this Capitol building putting the house in order? They don't want to be audited. They don't want to be audited. And so you want to fix our country. You want to tell other people what to do. And you are incapable of doing something straight for yourself or at your own backyard. All the counties. One of my piggy, he said he represents our people. And he said tired. And he didn't come to the Capitol building to do A, B, C, D. So I said, but what a fight about, piggy? This fight in the Capitol building, what is it about? And he went on. But so the guys in the Capitol building, they're talking about their paycheck, monthly paycheck. If that check is hampered, is stretchy, and then where the counties will have to stand up and say, the next round, we got to do better than this.
Deacon, before you end, it's like the chicken and egg, right? Because the people to put pressure need to know, what they are putting pressure. They need to be educated. This need to be a very informed society to do this. But it is not in the interest of the people who taking home $8,000 that these people be educated to challenge them. So the way to do it is to keep them in a way so that we can, they will always say, you don't have the Mohamed to defeat, or you are wasting your time. Oh, you are wasting. These are the people that are singing. So, so how would they put pressure on them? Because they are doing it so that they will get come. So they keep them down there, so that will continue to sing for them, so that they will continue to take home 8,000.
But those of us who have interest in that kind of business, we have to accept that. We have to accept that. Yes, the guy got to take home their little 8,000, but we too got to say our road need to be fixed. We got to teach them so that the system will invest in our country, in our schools, in our health, in everything we do. the budget. The guys, the majority group, they went to do business. They put budget on the floor. The next day they pass it. How is that? They pass the budget the next day. The way our country is, we have to be willing and ready to have the debate about our country. For me, I'm interested in the political party because that's all I've done. 40, 50 years, I work in the political party system. Then when we have to come, the change shall come. And I will tell you, even the opposition people, you want your party to work, then go on the floor, go make things in the 73 districts. Teach the people. It may be selfish to say, don't worry about the guy in the house. Since 2005, the guys are being elected, majority of them don't get returned to the capital. They serve the term, and maybe one or two will get re-elected. Most of them go back. Because they got to convince our people that they justify being there. Well, I'm not saying that maybe if you bring new person, he or she will be better, but they got to get that message that, look, we ain't like what you doing there. Or you got to do better. That's the only way we face the country. But somebody put a major budget thing, document on the floor today, and tomorrow is a law. It's frightening to me.
Frightening indeed. Let me bring on our producer at Kear FM to announce the numbers. So we need our callers from Monrovia. George.
Okay. Mr. Dennis, it's good to be here. Well, we have our guest in studio here with us on the Saturday like days. So, folks, the numbers to call in 0777 959 959 0777 959 959. These are the numbers to call in on the show. So,
call again, please. The number
0777 959. Yep, let me take my first caller here. Hello, caller. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you, my brother.
Yeah.
Where are you calling from?
My name is Samuel S. And I'm calling from Christopher.
Welcome, my brother.
Thank you very much. I just want to give something, the rest of the studios, panelists. Liberia, there should be some dramatic reform in our country. But all has to start with the president, based upon our constitution and the way our laws are passed. The president has to take the lead in making sure that all of the things that is bad in the country are put in a real perspective. If we have a president with a good heart, with a good intention, and want to see things right, my brother, I can tell you that Liberia will be right. But we don't have. We can make all the noise. We can make all the noise. We can talk all the things. Everything that we talk about will be for nothing. The head is the problem. And what's happening in Liberia right now, the head is the problem. I know the head is the problem. Thank you.
Okay, let's hear our next caller yet. Hello, caller.
Hey, hello.
Yes, your name, where are you calling from?
My name is Teacher B.K. Flomo, President, National Union of Organizations for the Disabled.
Welcome, Mr. Flomo.
Thank you, sir. You know, Liberia, where we have reached, our era currently, look back, social swear children in this era. Even the older man that is elected, he like a child. And the younger one that is elected, behave like the same. And we cannot be doing one thing over and over. We expect the same result. So, even when it comes to the disabled community, sometimes people say, oh, the disabled people are perfect. The disabled people doing this, the disabled people doing that. Is there criteria you are put into play to stop the disabled people moving here and there. Not at all. Even as a union that covered the entire 15 countries of the Republic of Liberia, served as the union president. Go and see the union headquarters. Even for us to survive by just going to work is very hard, you know. And there is still a plan to meet the president. Up to now, no way to reach him. So we are elected at the same crime behind the scenes. But we pray that God help us to progress tomorrow.
Okay, my brother. Thank you for calling. Those of you who monitoring the radio also via Facebook, on Facebook, all you need to do, just search for Focus on Liberia and you will monitor us live. Yeah. Hello, caller.
Yeah, how are you? Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon. Your name and where you joining us from?
Yeah, Johnny from Stockport, the community.
Your name?
My name is Mohamed Smith.
Welcome, my brother.
Yeah, you guys have said it all. But my taking is, I have noticed that all Liberians, not all, the majority of Liberians are taking the same way. They want to better their life at the expense of the other people. So we only need one person to make the change. Yeah, I think that person has to be the leader. We need a strong leader, a God-fearing person, and who is willing to do the job as the president that will not compromise. If we have somebody that's checking on people, giving them job and making sure that the job he gave them, they are doing the job that they're supposed to do. Because if you serve as a supervisor, you have to know the job that you gave the people to do. So when they're doing the wrong thing, you know exactly how you can checkmate them. But we got the presidents that don't know what to do. We got the leaders that don't know what to do. Nobody fear them. Even the people that he appointed, they don't even afraid of him. They don't even care about him. So we need to really stand strong and make sure we get a good president that's willing to do the job. Then we can have a change in our country. Thank you.
Okay, my brother. Thanks for calling. The numbers to call again on the show 0777 959 959 0777 959 959. These are the numbers to call and be a part of the show. Now, Dennis?
Thank you. You know, Mohamed, before I bring you in, I put together my own list on how we can fix this issue. And I have problem with my own list, but let me share with you. Constitutional reform, right? Strengthening the institutions, civic engagement, you know, promoting public awareness, that's a big one. Decentralization, transparency and accountability to establish a robust mechanism. Political party reform, Deacon Carlos is big on this one. Civil society involvement. And we need big brother to international support. Electoral reforms. Public accountability mechanism. These are the things I put together. But the reason I have problem with my own list is it's like the house is leaking and you try to patch it. I think we should just do away with the whole thing and start something from scratch that we ourselves perceive that can address our issue. A new system, a new form of government, something different. Let me hear you.
Yeah, you know, our people have something in the interior they call papo. So you got papo on your roof and then the roof leaking. You try to go for take new ones and put in there. Sometimes, most time, it's temporary. It doesn't work. So what I'm saying here, the problem with your list is what are the chances that this is ever going to work? No chance. No chance. You know, you all have said, made brilliant points on this particular issue. Someone talked about electoral reform. I think it's in your proposal. But you have, since after the Civil War, in the aftermath of the Civil War, the new administration after that war had the opportunity to lead, to champion constitutional reforms in terms of reducing the presidential term of office, reducing the legislative term of office. 6 years for president, a presidential term is too long. It's very long. 9 years for a senator is very long. 6 years for members of the House of Representatives is too long. So by the time you have a senator who, made 2 terms, you've had a child and that child has gone through and graduated high school. That's how long this is. And when you add another term, that child has graduated college now. So this is what we're talking about. So guys are sitting in there, as Deacon said, guys are sitting in there absolutely doing nothing and just making a hefty living off of the taxpayers' dollars. The frustrating thing for me is, and I'll start with the revolution in April 12th. So what did the revolution produce? What did it give to the Liberian people? No one can tell me in genuine terms, besides the change in demographic, where now we have quote unquote indigenous Liberian at the helm of executive authority, and a lot of indigenous citizens who now took up positions and at the national and local levels. But besides that, what really did Liberia achieve as a result of that revolution? The disappointment is that the indigenous people are the ones now, if you want to go down that, that kind of analytical route, are the ones fleecing their own people, are the ones economically depressing and suppressing their own people. These people are not patriotic. They're not nationalistic in their thinking. I mean, it's robbery what's going on. So why should it take? I mean, Dr. Williams is really, he's crying for help. Why should it take this? Why should it take someone putting their hands up and say, we can't make it, we failed, we need help? And the people in here who are getting paid, the people out there who are getting paid to service the Liberian people are not doing their job, and they're not about to do anything. That's the frustrating thing. So you have a whole bunch of these people who don't know what they're doing. Even those who know what they're doing, Dennis, they're not about to change their own status. They don't go in there saying, oh my God, I'm going to come in here and reduce our salary. They're not doing that, because you know what? Public service in Liberia is about getting super wealthy. Not just wealthy, but super wealthy. That's what public service is. I've talked about this ad nauseum. In the United States, public service is not about wealth. It's not about accumulating wealth. You can use public service for different reasons. You can use it as an outlet to the private sector where, you can build wealth. You can use the public sector in the United States. Maybe, you want to, educational opportunity, student loan forgiveness and stuff like that. Someone like me was enticed by that. Okay, that's why I'm in the United States public service. So if I were in Liberia now, I would be one of the most wealthiest people, just by the length of time I've been in the public service. So, all of this, you can bring it back to say, where do we go from here? Now, these people that are doing all of this, we can no longer say, this is, these are American Liberians that came here and they're suppressed. We can no longer say that. It's the indigenous people now who are not serving their own people, who are not nationalistic, who are not patriotic. It's like they don't even read history. What we have explained here, Dennis, the sequence of events that I have, the sequence of events that I have laid out just now, a lot of these people don't know this. They don't know their history. They don't go back and read their history. They don't sympathize with their people. Dennis, what have I said to you in our one-on-one conversation, even on here? When I was in Kalipo, there were guys, friends, classmates, and some guy, some other people, some other just schoolmates basically, coming from a town behind Kalipo. in Labo, just a few, maybe a few miles away. The creek, the cross is still there. There's no bridge over that water. I think there's two big creeks around along there. I say creek, but it is way bigger, right? So it's still there. It's never been fixed. It's never going to get fixed. Nobody's looking at this. So when is the time when people are getting millions and millions of dollars? When is that going to be fixed? When are the roads going to be fixed? So people can bring their farm product to the market. When is anything going to be done? What is going to be done? Dennis, I don't know. I don't know when any of this is going to happen because we keep electing the same people.
Mr. Sherif, you are painting a very hopeless picture.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you have to be realistic.
That's reality.
You have to, yes, you have to be realistic and then sit back and pick up the pieces. We have to now, this is a broken country. This is a rotten democracy. We have to look at it as that. It's broken. We now have to go back, perhaps pick up the pieces and put it together and say, how do we put this together? It is absolutely rotten. Nobody's being held accountable. Who's being held accountable for the millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars? If you add that up in years, billions that are stolen from the Liberian people. Who's been held accountable? Lastly, right after the Civil War, there was an opportunity for the first government after that war under Ellen Johnson Sirleaf to start the roadmap of fixing some of these issues. But again, everybody's interested in power. It went on. The next administration after that didn't fix anything. The next administration after that is not interested. Boakai is certainly not interested in fixing this. When George Weah tried a little bit to reduce the presidential term, you had the very opposition, Cummings and others, who fought against this. The opposition. So what do you expect now?
Thank you. Josh and Fidel, I want you to just 30 seconds each react to the colors. What we heard from them is, we're talking Imperial Presidency. What we heard from them is, this thing, only the president can change it. Does that sound like they want an imperial president or a benevolent dictator or president who is so good that his action is going to fix everything? Let me start with you, Dr. Budi.
Well, I think when you hear Liberians speaking the way they are, I think it's because maybe they're seeing what's going on in Burkina Faso, for example, or in Rwanda, for example, where a president or an individual that is quote unquote nationalistic enough to say, look, I'm going to sacrifice getting super wealthy, as my brother Mr. Sherif just mentioned, for the greater good. Many years ago, I was at a conference in Berlin. I met the health minister of Rwanda at the time, and these guys were using drones at that time to pilot medicine to different parts of their country. There were women in those parts of the country heading the health sector, right? So it's one of the most gender balanced or lopsided in favor of the women country in the world. The point here is, I understand why people would say that, because we have the imperial presidency, right? So the understanding then is, an imperial president, then he or she has the power to change. So if they are as nationalistic as these other guys are, then they can go ahead and change. I'm not of that opinion, and in responding to the callers, I believe that, as Mr. Carla said, and as my brother, I keep referring back to them, they said on Thursday, and I thought about it for a few days. We need a new set of progressives, right? That's what we need. We need a new set of, a lot of the things that you put on your list then is irrelevant. So don't doubt your list. Your list is very relevant, right? But I think you need individuals who are national, who are willing to make similar sacrifices as the progressives made in the 1970s, but learning from whatever. Because on Thursday I said, look, the progressives could have done things differently, right? And if you ask Mr. Kala, he would tell you, yeah, there are a lot of things we could have done differently, right? So learn from that. Read the history, like Dr. Williams mentioned, right? Learn from our history. So, okay, look, this one didn't work like this, so maybe we try it like this time. But we need a progressive, a united, taking Dr. Williams' point, a united progressive voice that can go out there and say, look, okay, we'll come together as a pressure group.
Your 1 minute is over.
Almost finished. Let me just land. We'll come together as a pressure group, right? We'll recommend ideas, and then maybe at some point metamorphose into a political party.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. William, you have 30 seconds now because Fidel took half of your time.
Yeah. No, I totally like your list. In fact, it is comprehensive. I think a comprehensive agenda for governance reform in Liberia at all levels has to start now. All of these people wanting to run in 2029 must be filtered through a comprehensive governance reform program. We need to see what their outlook is and what have you. Contrary to the suggestion that we discard whatever we have now and start anew, I say no. I say we do have a good, a fine print that we can refine further. One of those areas, for example, is to take away some of the powers from the president. That is something the legislature does not need a referendum to do. They can begin now to set and establish this agenda as we move towards 2029.
You said the legislature? You said the legislature?
I am suggest it has to come from somewhere.
Okay.
It should come from the president. A president who is old enough to be at the stage where he might not be seeking re-election. So it should be coming from him, but seemingly it's not there. And the disappointment is during the State of the Nation address, I saw the president talk about reform in passing. It was like 3 bullets at the end of his speech. He placed no emphasis, no importance to governance reform, and that disappointed me. I am hoping that this president can clean up that mistake by putting forward a comprehensive governance reform agenda for the country, so that come 2029, some of those reforms can be put in place. Those that are more feasibly implementable prior to 2029, and those things that must go to referendum go to referendum. But indeed, we need a comprehensive reform agenda as we move forward.
Thank you. You know, I was going on Facebook and I saw this post where President Kadma chased D2 out of the country. I was like, you know, so sometimes when people talk about progressive, they want to start from in the 1970s, but D2 at 200 and all these people were progressive even before the likes of Dr. Tipote or D. Khan. Well, gentlemen, and Glendy Lever, I want to thank you very much. At this time, we're going to close the broadcast. We have 7 minutes to close, so I need 45 seconds each closing. We were talking about it. You mentioned Nimba County, and I was watching it, and I saw people, Kroger, nothing against him, but he's already representative. And the people are in the street, they are dancing, they want Kroger. I'm like, okay,
what is he going to do as senator that he can't do as representative?
Exactly. What is it that we want to change here?
Yeah.
But that's a different topic. You got to join us today at 3 Eastern, which is 7 Liberia time. We're going to be talking about the tariffs, President Trump's tariffs. These tariffs, I mean, what are tariffs for? And do these have implication on the Liberian economy? Or we think we are so remote we can feel a pinch? You want to join us?
Yeah.
Our financial guru, Gabriel, will be there. And Anthony Kanneh Freeman, who is a forensic accountant, will also be there. And guess what? I'm going to be there because I have to prove to people that when they call me well-rounded, it's not for nothing. Let's go around the room now for 45 seconds each and close. Let me start with Deacon. You're closing, sir.
I like all the comments. I wish you well. But the only piece that I wish you would think passed by your family members, you got to take a hard look at what is on the ground. In the United States, It's good. You make some money. You read a lot of material. It's good. You got to organize the ground. It needs serious organizing. I always say to people that because when we're organizing that rough period 75 to 1980, people told us that we're young, we're this, we're that. But you got to find people who want to do it. You got to find people who want to fix Liberia, who see something wrong with Liberia and want to do something about it. And please forgive me, you cannot do it when you're away.
True.
Now you will say, Bokan, you got to be there. You got to be, yes, you have to be there. Particularly the few days I spent with you guys are very knowledgeable. So you got to be there to help teach our people to do this thing.
Thank you, Deacon. And let me announce that I'm on my way because my dream job is still on the table. Superintendent of Kanneh County. And let me tell you some of my plans now. Number one, we're going to have Kanneh farms. So for each of these districts, there are going to be a farm. And if you are superintendent now, you can steal my plans, or you can contact me. I will give them to you. But I'm coming quickly. Dr. William, you're closing. 45 seconds. We have 4 minutes to close.
Well, thank you, Dennis. As always, when it comes to Liberia, it's our passion. Liberia is all we have. We're passing through this desolate land, on our way back home, and hopefully, while we're waiting our final arrival back home, we'd like to stay tuned and contribute in what meager way we can through these conversations to enlightening our people. Deacon's pretty right. We need to be on the ground. We need to talk to our people. We need to make the sacrifice, in short. The sacrifice has to be made. Liberia will not be transformed by foreigners, but by us, Liberians. And only us can do it for ourselves. We have to be a part of the conversation. And so thank you so much for the privilege of being on the platform and being in the company of these erudite intellectuals. Hopefully, our people on the ground are hearing us and they're benefiting from these conversations.
Thank you. And nobody does it better than focus on Liberia, where we educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberian. Gabriel, you have 30 seconds. Closing.
Yeah, Dennis, thank you for having me, and it's good to be back here with the rest of you. For those of you actually in, on live watching us, I just want to maybe pose a few questions here as we close. I think we've narrated extensively in terms of the challenges with Imperial Presidency, and since the end of this war, 22 years later, where we are as a country. We have to look at the opposite side of that spectrum as to, meaning if we continue down the path, there are unintended consequences that we're not paying attention to. And with those unintended consequences should be the driving force for us to change. And this is what I think we should look at as well. We look at the challenges, but we also should look at the unintended consequences that these challenges pose if we continue as a group, as a people down this path. So I want us to think about that. Thank you guys for having me. See you guys at 3 o'clock on here. Thank you.
Thank you. Mohamed?
Yeah. So presidents set precedents. So whatever another president had done 100 years ago, other presidents are going to look at that. They don't copy. Usually in Liberia, our administrations don't copy good behavior. They always copy bad behaviors. And so I started with Daniel E. Howard when he deployed troops to Grand Crew and Sano counties and suppress this rebellion in a brutal manner. Executive overreach, no legislature. The legislature never held anyone accountable. They didn't say, hey, we're going to hold a hearing and see why did this happen, so that this don't happen again. No, they were all in cahoot with the president because the president was driving the agenda. And so
we have less than a minute to close.
Okay.
So please wrap up.
Okay. So that was it. And so as you move forward, all the other administrations and presidents, did the same thing. So, that's that.
Dr. Budi.
All right, I'll try and do 20 seconds. I think I agree with Mr. Kala. I think what we need to do is find partners on the ground who are progressives. And as diaspora Liberians, we can support them, and not just with our ideas, but morally and financially as well. But great show, and looking forward to the next time.
Thank you. George? Our mayor control in Monrovia.
Oh, look, you gotta distinguish.
Dr. Yeah, we are closing. Just announced that we are closing to the radio station, and we see you again at 3 p.m. on FOL Marketplace. Until then, we close with our song that says, "We are all Liberians." Have a good day.
We are Liberians. Liberia is our home.